So today we are going to be doing our June native plant garden tour. We have lots of things in bloom. Some things are looking really great. Some things have actually already passed, some of the spring blooming plants. So lots of things to share, so we'll get right to it. Thanks so much for watching. This is our Scarlet Beebalm right beside the obedient plant. It's about 2.5 feet tall. And as you can see here, we've got some bloom heads starting. So we should expect to see those in the next little while. And these are the bright red kind of firework plant that I just love in the garden. And this plant here has pretty much doubled in size since I transplanted it here last year. Here's our obedient plant. It's about 3.5 feet tall right now. And as you can see, it's kind of drooping over. So it, like, let's see right over here, like this stalk here, you can see that it's saying, I need more water. And it really is more of a wetland plant, but it has been very happy in my suburban garden, but it does need a little bit more attention when it comes to water than other plants. It's been a little bit hot here this past week or so, so I'm just going to have to make sure that this guy gets more water than some of the more drought resistant plants. So here is our pussy willow plant. It's kind of in a shady spot right now, but you can definitely see that we have a ton of new growth. This was the plant that I propagated last fall and then planted it. And as you can see, we've got these drier sticks here, which I am pretty sure are done for, but we've got lots of growth. We've got some new stalks down here. Lots of new happy little parts of this plant. So I am not worried about this plant in the least. It's about doubled in size since last month, so I think he's going to be just fine. Here's our Serviceberry bush. I wasn't sure if it was going to have berries this year, as last year we didn't have any berries. It was new to us last year, but check it out. We've got berries coming. I'm pretty thrilled about this. This is the kind of plant that needs a male and female nearby for the pollinators to kind of do their thing and to make fruit. And I don't have another Serviceberry bush. So clearly somebody else is nearby, which I know there are some nearby, are close enough that this is actually getting berries. So I'm really happy about that. This is our new Narrowleaf Vervain. This was one of the new native plants that we got in the Reap Green Solutions Bloom in the Box, the sun box that we got earlier this year. I did a little video on that, which I'll put a link for you here. But look, it's already blooming. Sometimes when you get new plants, you don't really expect them to bloom because they're pretty unhappy about the move. But this guy's already in bloom, and isn't that just so pretty? Tiny little flowers. But this plant will get probably about 3 feet high, 3 feet wide. So we'll be moving some of these other plants that I have around it as it grows and let it kind of establish itself here next to our more naturalized area, which I'm trying to grow more native plants close by so that my non-native plants don't kind of creep into that naturalized area. So here is our Spiderwort plant, and this plant has like tripled in size. It's super duper happy. Last fall we got a new fence in and totally trampled on this plant. I thought it was gone and done for, but it has bounced back and is perfectly fine. I do have 2 Spiderwort plants, and one is right here. I don't know if you can see the difference in color, but this one is more of a lime green color, whereas this other one is more of a deeper green. I'm sure that one of these is probably native. I'm thinking the deeper green, and that the other one is probably a cultivar. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of research into that, but if you happen to know which one is native and how to identify the native, then please let me know. Sometimes you get plants passed down to you and you're told that they're the native version, and sometimes they aren't. So if you can help, please do, and please share some thoughts in the comments. So here is our smooth blue aster. To be completely honest, I'm not too super thrilled with this plant. I got it as a seedling about 2 falls ago, and last year we had about 1 of these spindly little stalks, and this year we have about 4. So it's really not growing very quickly, which is fine, but it looks a little spindly in the meantime. But you know what? Maybe over time it will look great in this part of the garden and it will be happy, but for now it's kind of a few spindly stalks. So if you grow smooth blue aster and you just love it, or if you have tricks on how to make it grow even better, then please leave some ideas in the comments below. So here's our heartleaf foamflower. I really do love this plant. It's so pretty. The flowers are absolutely gorgeous. It's all finished blooming now, but the leaves themselves are pretty in my mind as well. And so this plant is my original foamflower, and it is now sending out shoots. So I'm seeing like all these little like runners kind of moving along. So it's now establishing itself in this part of the garden, which is awesome. I wasn't sure how it was going to be doing that, but yeah, it's got these kind of runners here. There's some in the back as well. So I will let it do its thing because I really do want this to kind of spread out in our shady garden over here. Here's our Canada anemone. This is still in bloom. So that's been about a month that this is still blooming. It's got these pretty little white flowers. Look, there's a little pollinator there visiting this one as well. And it is a little taller than I had expected. So this one I put at the very front of my shade garden, but I don't think it really fits here. So after it's done blooming, I'm going to move it to another part of our shady garden so that it can spread out, because apparently this spreads quite quickly too. So we're going to put it somewhere else. But in the meantime, we'll enjoy its lovely little flowers, and hopefully it'll make some seeds that we can plant as well. Here's our Solomon seal in our shady garden. It did really, really well this year after a transplant last fall. Now it is a taller plant. It's about maybe 4 feet long each stalk, but some of them have kind of flopped over, as you can see. So I think next year I will use some supports to help this guy stand up on his own and look really spectacular at the back of the garden. And then you can see that all the flowers have passed. And then we've got, I think, 1 seed pod here. So I don't see any others, but at least there's one. So maybe he will fall and drop and make more Solomon seal in the shady garden. Here's the Trillium that we got from Native Plant Source. No blooms this year, but sometimes it takes a while for them to bloom, or after a move they might get angry and not bloom for a while. So hopefully next year. We only have one of these guys over here, but if he's happy, maybe he'll make some more friends to hang out with. Here is our fern that we have right beside the Solomon seal. It is a little smaller, so I'm hoping that he will get bigger over time. But in the meantime, I will enjoy him. I really like the texture that it provides in the shade garden. So here is our wild Columbine, and as you can see, there's stuff going on. The flowers have all passed, and check it out. We've got some tracks here. I'm not sure what made these. If you know, please be sure to comment and help me learn. We've got some of the seed pods here starting to develop their seeds. So that's awesome. And then you can see there's like kind of like a little webs going on. So I'm not sure what's making them, if that's the same creature that might have been making those tracks on the leaves as well. So yeah, stuff is going on. So I'm kind of excited. The whole idea is to help support all of the creatures and whatnot in the garden. So yeah, if you know what's going on here, help me learn. Post some ideas in the comments. So here is our butterfly weed, and you can see that there are tons of tiny little bloom heads starting to form. So we're going to get lots of those gorgeous orange flowers that I just love in the sunny part of the garden. Now this butterfly weed is actually starting to reach out here a bit more from this back part of the house. Now before, this sand cherry over here was just tiny, but now it's starting to shade it out. So that's the only thing, is that this plant loves the sun. It can handle drought. It's a great plant for a sunny, dry spot. But now that this plant is getting bigger, it's telling me that it clearly wants to have more sun. So I might just have to trim the sand cherry a bit so it gets all the sun that it needs. Here's our New England Aster, and it is really doing well. Last year it was a little small, but this year it's really probably doubled in size, and we're going to expect a whole bunch of pretty purple blooms on this plant in the later part of the summer. So no blooms yet, but it looks really lovely, and I'm hoping that it'll fill in this spot over time over here by my rain barrel. It normally gets lots of sun and it's pretty dry, so this plant will be perfectly happy. Here is our Prairie Smoke plant in our boulevard garden, and I don't think that we're going to get flowers this year. I think the time has passed for the flowers to form, and so hopefully next year we'll get some flowers. Over here beside our Prairie Smoke in the Boulevard Garden, we've got our Cardinal Flower. And look, we actually have some blooms forming, so that's kind of exciting. I wasn't sure if we would get blooms this year, so I will be looking forward to these. These are such beautiful, bright red flowers that hopefully we'll get soon enough. Also in the Boulevard Garden, we have our evening primrose. We've got some all the way over there as well. And look at how gorgeous this is. It just looks like sunshine, bright yellow flowers that the pollinators just love. Over here beside our evening primrose, we've got our wild blue lupin. And honestly, I'm so excited about this plant. I just got it last year. It was just a small plant, so wasn't sure if it was going to bloom. And look at this. We've got all these bright blue blooms on this. They kind of spike up into this soft lavender color as they bloom. It's absolutely gorgeous. I just can't get enough of this plant. And thankfully, because it's blooming, fingers crossed, we'll get a whole bunch of seeds. You can actually see here that there's seed pods forming. So I'm definitely going to be collecting these and then planting a ton more wild blue lupin in the garden. So over here in the other Boulevard Garden, we have our wild bergamot. Here it is here. And this is the one that has lavender flowers. Nothing's in bloom quite yet, but I expect this to have some little beautiful lavender kind of, I like to call them firework flowers, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Here we have our daisy fleabane. So this volunteered itself into my grass and I moved it over here thinking that it would get enough sun. But as you can see, it's leaning way over. So I'm definitely going to have to put this in a different spot in the garden where it will get lots of sun, but also might be supported by other plants, or even maybe a support from the garden store, etc. Here's our blanket flower. This guy's fallen over, so hopefully he'll stand back up. Here is the rest of the plant, and it's about at the top of this flower here, probably about 2.5 feet tall. And this is a lovely, I just love like the coral and yellow colors of the petals here. This plant, I moved here because it was stretching to reach the sun, but now I'm wondering if it's getting enough sun in this spot. The plants can really tell you what they're asking for. When they lean towards the sun, they definitely want more than what you're giving it. So this might go for another transplant into a sunnier spot in the garden. So clearly a fall sun perennial that hopefully will bloom for a good long time. Here is our Lanceleaf Coreopsis, and I'm pretty excited. This is the first time that this one has bloomed for me. And look, we've got a ton of blooms and a ton coming. So this guy's pretty happy. And then over here, I planted a baby Lanceleaf Coreopsis and another one over here. So we're going to have lots of lovely yellow flowers in this part of our garden. Here we have our little blue stem plant, and we have another one back there. And these are going to grow quite large. They're going to get about 3-4 feet in height. And I thought that they would look really nice here beside this piece of log that I have. And this was from a fallen tree from a neighbor, so they were very gracious to let us have a piece. And if you'd like to add some biodiversity to your garden, consider adding some logs like this, some wood that can decompose naturally, and then you might get other creatures that might come to visit as well, like woodpeckers to come and feed on the things that are living inside the log. I actually put a little plant in there as well. It's not a native plant, but I think it looks kind of cute. So here we have our new golden Alexander plant. I just got 2 of these little plants here from a friend. Thank you so much. These plants are actually the swallowtail host plant, or one of the swallowtail host plants. So fingers crossed we'll attract some swallowtails to this part of the garden, and maybe even they'll lay an egg or 2 and we'll see some caterpillars. I'm super duper hoping for that. This plant is also tolerant of part shade, so that's why it's over here by our hostas, and hopefully it will grow nice and big to stand up behind our hosta here as part of our kind of hybrid garden design. So here we have our prickly pear cactus, and check it out, we have 2 new cactus pads growing. Last month, what I thought was perhaps little flowers was actually just the start of these 2 new pads here on each of my cactuses or cacti. this guy has two new big arms kind of raising up to the sky as well. So these are clearly really happy, made it through the winter, and hopefully they'll grow even more this season and then have them forevermore. These are perennial native cactuses to Southern Ontario, so pretty excited about these little guys. So in my last video, I shared with you a total flop when it came to my so-called garden hack of labeling these plastic spoons. Definitely not a great idea over the winter. I had to go back to an old picture that I had, thankfully, of these to figure out what they were. So let me just show you what I have here. We've got some wild Columbine. So I always like to see what the plants look like in their tiny little seedling form so that I know not to pick them and think that they're weeds growing in the garden. So that's wild Beebalm. Over here is false blue indigo. This plant gets rather large, so I'm gonna definitely make sure that it has room to grow from this tiny little version to something about 3-4 feet in height. We've got some cup plant. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this looks like clover. So if you've ever grown cup plant and this is what it looks like, then great, let me know in the comments. Or if not, then let me know still, and I'll probably just toss all this in the grass. And then over here, we've got some spotted bee balm. So down here, that's what the spotted bee balm looks like in its tiny little seedling form. One more tiny little seedling to share with you. This is the swamp milkweed, and this is the tiny little baby swamp milkweeds that I fall sowed last fall and that are looking really good right now. I've put some in the garden and then I've moved these into pots to share with friends as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video interesting and helpful. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. We'll be doing videos like this all throughout the whole growing season, so please consider following along. Thanks again for watching.